Hey, this is Matt once again. What about the video is the paid request, and it's for the film Wolf from 1994. And for those interested in requesting any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, whatever, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links, like I said, down below in the info box, pretty much under any of these videos. Now, Wolf is a film I've seen throughout the years a couple times, and I've always thought it was okay. Even watch it again, I think it's okay. Mainly because of the cast. Because you got Jack Nicholson, you got Michelle Pfeiffer, both of them teaming up again after Riches of Eastwick. You also have James Spader. It's always great to have James Spader in there. David Schwimmer, weirdly enough, appears as just a cop. This is before Friends and stuff were a big success, or whatever the hell. It's just this David Schwimmer as just a random police officer trying to arrest Jack Nicholson. I don't even think he has a name. It's just Cop. Or Cop Number 1 or whatever. So I'm like, is that David Schwimmer? Yes, it is. Now, this is directed by Mike Nichols. He did Regarding Henry, which I enjoy, with Harrison Ford. He did The Birdcage, I think right after this. Now, this is around the time where you had Bram Stoker's Dracula, you had Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you had Mary Riley, the Julia Roberts film about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So you had these kind of trying to be more Hollywood big budget production of these old Universal monster movies. And like I said, the cast helps immensely. I don't know if the film needed to be over 2 hours long. The finale of the film doesn't seem as exciting as it should be. Mike Nichols, I don't think he's a guy that knows how to do horror the best. Because I don't think the film was ever scary. I don't think the film was ever creepy. It was never... never felt the horror aspect of it. But he's definitely a guy that works better in bits of drama or even bits of comedic points. So, Jack Nicholson, he's the editor of this publishing house in New York. He's driving home one night. He hits a wolf. He checks on it. He gets bit. He goes home and he starts changing. And he can read better without his glasses. He gets demoted, but he decides to fight back. And there's some funny lines in this. Some of them are like, yeah, the worm has turned and is patting an Uzi. And his secretary goes, "About fucking time, sir." Or later on when James Spader is talking about Michelle Pfeiffer to a guard and he says, "Man, does she look like the fuck of the decade or what?" James Spader knew how to throw that line so well. And it was my favorite line. My favorite line reading is James Spader. I will admit there's a part of me that would love to have seen it reversed. James Spader as the Jack Nicholson role, and then Jack Nicholson as the James Spader role. I think the film would have been even more interesting if it was that. I would love to have seen that movie. But Jack Nicholson still does a good job. Pretty much he finds out that his wife's cheating on him. He's trying to get his job back. He's trying to fuck over the guy that fucked him over. The guy who fucked him over, who's a big kiss ass. Is played by Jay Spader's a lot of fun in this. He's really good as the guy that will try to be your best friend but then stab you in the back at the same time. And very weasel of a guy. And I'm a big fan of James Spader. Ever since I saw Jack's Back and all these other movies. He did great as Ultron in Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm just a huge James Spader fan. Can't go wrong with having James Spader in your movie. But yeah, Jack Nicholson, he's having this enhanced smell. He's sleeping late. And ultimately he starts meeting up with the new boss's daughter. The boss is played by Christopher Plummer, who I remember from Star Trek 6, among many other films. And the daughter is played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And you get this kind of love story, not kind of, but you get this love story slowly building up between Jack and Michelle Pfeiffer. Now you just say there's a bit of an age discrepancy. Maybe you think, well, what does Michelle Pfeiffer see in Jack Nicholson's character? But Jack Nicholson, like I say, he does a good job. He plays a guy that at the beginning is very trying to be very nice, very courteous. He apologizes for certain things, and he's not being a creep. And I can see why Michelle would be entranced with Jack. I mean, it's Jack Nicholson, he's one of the best actors you've ever had. So it's going a bit more for that love story, and I don't know if I want to say erotic. It's not like there's a lot of love scenes. There's like one or two, but not like literally. It's not like a Skinamax movie. But I know it's one of those films that as I'm watching it, I'm liking the cast, I'm liking the acting, but something about it never goes up to the next level. I never quite know what that is, either because I don't feel as much intensity, or yeah, I don't feel really anything that's creepy or potentially horror. That's the thing, it's a horror film, but I guess in a way, it feels more like a thriller than a horror film. I don't know if that makes sense. And I guess it's dealing more with office politics and falling in love with Michelle Pfeiffer and less about the horror of it all. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a werewolf movie. I mean, there's a point, spoiler alert, where he's running because of his instincts and he kills a deer. And he wakes up, he's got blood on him, and he's like, what the hell happened? He meets this older guy who gives him this amulet that he's supposed to wear to. What was the line he says? Power without guilt, love without doubt. Good to be a wolf, isn't it? That's what the old guy tells Jack. I forget the older guy's name, but I thought he did a pretty decent job. He seemed like an actor that would fit in the 30s Universal era, like the old gypsy lady warning Lon Chaney Jr. and them about the curse. And there's some stuff that was maybe a bit too goofy. There's a point where Jack Nicholson pisses on James Spader's shoes to mark his territory. There's this bit with, seemed out of the blue, with muggers trying to attack Jack, and then Jack attacks them. And then later on, he doesn't remember. He pulls out these fingers and he drops them in the sink. So again, at times, maybe sometimes I don't know whether I was supposed to laugh at certain scenes or not. I think I was. But again, the fact that it's over 2 hours long, the fact that it doesn't have as much bite as you're hoping for a werewolf film. And when you get to the finale, which is, I can see why people thought the finale is reshot, because it just, what happens is, super spoilers, is Jack, his ex-wife's been found killed. He doesn't know what happened, if he did it. Michelle Pfeiffer locks him up. But when she goes to the police station, Richard Jenkins, who's in The Shape of Water and other stuff, he's there as a very bumble-headed cop. He's told to James Spader, and James Spader just makes it obvious that he's a werewolf. I mean, the eyes are red, just the growling, the sniffing, the eyes being completely inhuman. I mean, you might as well have a picket sign that says, "I'm werewolf, how you doing?" Or neon sign that says, "Killer." Or might as well be singing to her, "You're gonna be a victim, kid. Just another victim." I mean, he could not make it any more obvious. So I don't know, a little bit more subtlety, I think, would have made that scene work a bit better. Also, sometimes people just cannot take any amount of face value common sense. Like, a guard sees that James Spader looks like Wolverine. That's what the werewolves look like. They look like big mutton chops. They're literally trying to go for an audition for Wolverine. Yeah, to be the next Wolverine. That's really what it is. And no one's looking at James Spader and going, yeah, something's up with this. Your eyes are inhuman, and you a fan of Logan? Are you in the Weapon X program? But guards don't think of it, and they just get killed easily. There's not a lot of gore. It's not a gore-filled movie. Like I said, there's one part where fingers are pulled out of a pocket. Jack munching a little bit on a deer, which I guess depending on your mood could either look goofy or not. And the fight at the end is pretty much Jack pulls the amulet, jumps off and over a fence, which I guess for some reason that one shot was added where he jumped over the fence, and that cost $1 million. The fact that one shot of a guy jumping over a fence cost $1 million shows just how wrong Hollywood is, even back then, let alone nowadays. And it wasn't even that exciting of a shot. I don't think people would have missed it if it was cut out or not filmed at all, I should say. And it's just pretty much them struggling, very rapid fire editing, like they're trying to bite each other, but so rapid you can barely tell. Like very rapid fire edit. Da, 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 da. One throws the other, one gets stabbed. Jack throws James Spader against the steps. James Spader makes the wrong move and jump it in slow mo. Because if you don't want to jump, don't jump in slow motion. Because when you jump in slow motion, you take too long, and Michelle Pfeiffer shoots the shit out of him. The end. I don't know, it just wasn't that exciting or that intense or that crazy or that big of a finale. It seems kind of mundane. It just seems kind of small. I'm not saying it needs to be a Michael Bay ending, but it just, for all the build-up for 2 hours, it just seemed... Then they looked at each other, he runs off, and then he turns to an actual wolf. And the practical effect of the wolf, it's not the best. As you can tell, it's a bit stilted. Like the wolf barely tilts his head up to... Ooh. I mean, I appreciate that it's practical, but it's not the smoothest, motion. And then, I just, because of the passion of the wolf, they mentioned the passion of the wolf, you can still turn. So she turns to a werewolf. Now, whether, because there's dialogue of, you don't always turn to a wolf. So I guess with Michelle Pfeiffer, either A, she's just going to be a werewolf with the eyes, or maybe eventually she'll turn to the she-wolf of London. I don't know. And she's driving away. Is she going to meet back with Jack? I guess she's not going to meet back with Jack. Is she going to turn to a full-blown werewolf eventually? Is she going to be, again, the she-wolf of London? For those who remember that show. So, again, the ending just left a bit of, this, like, well, Jack Nicholson's character, you feel bad because he didn't really deserve that fate, because he didn't seem that bad of a guy, and then his ex-wife was murdered, and he saved Michelle Pfeiffer's character, but there's no, he just turned to a kind of an ugly-looking wolf roving around the woods. I also thought they were going to go back to what the original wolf was that bit him, that eventually we're going to... But no, I guess once you turn to a full wolf, you don't turn back. I guess that's the thing. Like, eventually you don't turn to just a full-blown wolf, out, and you don't turn back. I guess hence the title Wolf. But like I said, it's not a bad film. It has some fun bits of dialogue, of snarky comments. Jack Nicholson, great actor. Interested to see him do well, The Shining is still the best horror film I think he's done. But interested to see him return a bit to that realm. Listen, Michelle Pfeiffer is beautiful. Ever since I saw her as Catwoman in Batman Returns. You don't see her a whole lot nowadays. Every once in a blue moon she pops up in something, but Was she in like a recent Tim Burton film? Or I can't remember. But it's always nice to see Michelle Pfeiffer. She's a good actress, beautiful lady. James Spader's fun. Like I said, a part of me would love to have seen him as the lead. Because the little bits between him and Michelle Pfeiffer, there was some interesting chemistry there. And I read somewhere that she liked working with James Spader, and she knew someone that helped get him the job on Boston Legal, the TV show. I believe that was the case. So that's pretty interesting. That's just a show I need to pick up, Boston Legal. I mean, he's got James Spader and William Shatner. I need to give that show a look sometime. And David Hyde Pierce from Frasier, he's in the show as a guy that works with Jack Nicholson's character. Although, after a bit, he kind of disappears. Just because the story doesn't know how to fit those characters in anymore. The love story between Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer, I didn't mind. I thought they worked fine together. I think it helped that they worked together before on Witches of Eastwick. So it's not like they're complete strangers working with each other. It's not a bad film. It's a decent film. The cast carries it through and through. It's just, again, I wish there was a bit more bite to it. I wish there was a bit more, either the pacing was a bit more tighter, or the finale was a bit more intense or thrilling or exciting, or maybe bigger and bombastic. I don't know. I'd have to see it to see if that was to be the right fit or not. I don't know. Just what happens with Jack's character and Michelle Pfeiffer's character kind of up in the air. What's eventually going to happen to her, and she doesn't seem too surprised to have turned to a werewolf. Like, she doesn't seem too upset. Like, her eyes are glowing. She's just smiling. I'm like, okay. She's not upset. She's not worried that she don't turn to a wolf. Or she seemed pretty nonchalant about it. Maybe that was her wet dream or something. I don't know. So it's not my favorite werewolf film. That would still be your Dog Soldiers and Silver Bullet and Full Eclipse and a few others. But it's a decent film. It's just not a film I love, but it's decent. The music's trying to have a bit of that 30s, 40s Universal feel to it. Like I said, my Nichols, I just don't think he's the best guy in terms of horror. Because the horror aspects are kind of the weakest parts of it. But the bit of character work and the ups and downs of the publishing house, and like, that seems to be the better scenes. Because that's, I think, the scenes the director's more comfortable with. But the horror aspects, not so much. You can kind of see it. Because they're not the most scary, intense, thrilling, exciting parts of it. So, not a bad film. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later.